Welcome back. Got another torch in for testing. It's the Klarus FX10 and this got sent in via FastTech for a review. So we go through the standard procedure. I show you the box purely because it gives you some of the details and specs on the torch. This one is the zoomable one from Klarus, brand new out, and they're quoting a range of around about 300 meters. Got the usual water resistance, and here's some more of the features in detail. You can see we have the 4 power levels and the 2 strobe modes. Take note of the ranges for the different settings on the zoom head. That will obviously affect the beam significantly. You can use the 16340s with this as well, but it does come with its own 18650. There's the micro USB charging cable and the O-ring, and you get the standard Klarus strap, which is low profile, and your user guide. I will show you that later on in the video. So here's the torch. It looks very much like a lot of other Klarus torches. In other words, you have that micro USB port on the back. The switch itself is very similar in design to the other Klarus torches that I've looked at, and the overall design is as well, with the paddle switch on the base. So that's quite a good thing, because I like that with the Klarus torches that I've used myself. I think it works quite well with these sort of tactical settings. And this is the zoom head, which is, it has indents on the head, so it's reasonably easy to turn. It's a lot easier to turn than the Phoenix, but it doesn't have any knurling or sort of crosshatch areas which give it grip. So if you've got gloves on, say woolly gloves or something, you probably need to use 2 hands for that, and that's using the XPL High V3. And have a look here when I'm zooming it in and out. You can see that it's similar to other zoom torches in that the LED goes backwards and forwards, but if I compare it to the Phoenix, it's quite different. The Phoenix has a dual reflector, but you can see on the Klarus it's kind of black, so around the LED, and you can see when I've got it on the lowest setting here, it's more diffused on the Phoenix. So we'll look later on and see how that holds up with the beam pattern. As far as the rest of the overall build quality, as you expect from Klarus, very good, strong clip. And here's your switches on the tail cap. You have your main switch there and the paddle switch. So I do like this design. You can also stand this on its tail. It's not super stable, but it will stand. And you get your 2600 milliamp hour battery. Would have preferred a slightly higher capacity one, but it seems to be becoming more common. There's your contact points at the bottom. You can see the raised section there, so that's for the paddle switch. And you do have a spring on the inside, so you can use flat top cells if you want to. There's no problem at all using those or charging them in the torch, so that's a nice feature to have. Do like that option, because I have quite a few unprotected 18650s. Holster is a bit different from the usual one from Klarus. They've gone for something a bit more chunky. This one has the logo on the front. They've also gone with the neoprene padding on this, which is different to the other Klarus ones that I've looked at, which didn't really have much padding. There's your D-loop and your fold over Velcro part at the back. You've also got this sewn in belt loop. So there's 2 ways of thinking about that. It offers more protection, but it is a bit more bulky compared to the previous holsters that they were including with their torches. I don't mind it. It's a nice quality holster, but just bear that in mind. There's different thoughts on that. You can put this in either direction, and it does provide good protection. So if you're someone that does drop a torch in the holster, it will pretty much fully protect it, as much as you could expect from a holster. Now we'll look at the UI. So a single press is on, long press off. You do have a mode memory on that. Then you have your main switch for the momentary turbo, which can also turn on and off the light. If you want to get to the settings memorized, just use the side switch, not the base switch. Here's your lockout. Push and hold that in for 5 seconds, and then you just triple press to unlock that. The UI seems quite complicated on this, but I've put the manual afterwards. Here's your access to strobe on the paddle switch. Again, you can switch that around if you don't want the strobe. And then you can double press as well on the side switch for strobe, and then press it again for the SOS, and a single press takes you out of that. So it does seem like it takes a while to get used to this, but you do get used to it quite quickly. The main thing is that you can switch between the 2 modes, the tactical and the outdoor, so that gives you either an option on the paddle of having the strobe or the instant low. So it's quite flexible in that regard. So once you have got used to it, it's actually very good UI. Battery level indicator, there's a 4-stage one. That's pretty much well sorted. with Klarus. I've never had any complaints with that. It's definitely better than most makers. So here is the user guide. Just in case I've missed anything, I've left up this part a bit longer with the user interface because it's worth reading through that a bit longer to get used to that. It is quite flexible though, and it's customizable, so that is a strong point with this particular torch. Charging speeds just under the 1 amp mark, which is good. It's generally a bit faster than most of them, and there's no issues with the termination, and the capacity was pretty much bang on the 2600 mark, or just a fraction over. Water resistance test for half an hour, didn't see any problems with that, and I will do a comparison with the Phoenix FD45 because they're both focus torches. So we will start off with the FX10 at the medium setting. This is fully zoomed in, and then we move up to the high setting. You can see the intensity increase in the middle, and then up to turbo, which has a reasonable power output. It's not the most powerful torch out there, but I will zoom it out and you can see just how much it changes the beam pattern if we go from a tight hotspot to a wider flood. Now we'll put up the FD45, even though this is rated a bit lower in terms of output, and I'll zoom that out. What I noticed is that the Phoenix has a wider spread, particularly when zoomed in. And it has more intensity in the middle, so you're going to get a bit more range, and that's reflected in the specs as well. So Phoenix are quoting a bit more range on that model compared to the Klarus. It may only be around 30 meters, but you can see you get a wider spread as well as the more intensity in the hotspot with the Phoenix, and that is something to consider. It's definitely a lot better than the budget zoom torches, but I'll show you here now, fully zoomed out, how it's more diffused on the Phoenix. But when you zoom in, you've got these circular rings which show up on the Klarus, which can be a bit annoying, particularly if you're up close to something. If you're further distance away, it doesn't really make much difference at all, really. You don't notice it, but that is something which I find a little bit annoying. So we'll carry on with the beam shots, and I'll come back with a few thoughts and wrap up the review at the end. Just to give you a few thoughts on the Klarus torch, there is quite a lot I like on this torch, particularly the tactical design. I've been a fan of that paddle switch for a while, and it works well. You can also customize it, so that's a strong point for the torch. This is using the optical lens similar to the Phoenix, but I have to be honest, I think Phoenix is doing a better job, particularly zoomed in. For some reason you have rings in the beam pattern, which could annoy some people. There's also a couple of other points, such as I'd like an extra power level. Been on about that for a while, so it's pretty good, but perhaps I was expecting slightly better, at least in terms of the real world performance with the beam pattern. Whilst I'm here, there is a new model from Klarus, the XT11X. I will try and get a sample of this, but looking at that, it seems like the company is stuck at 4 power levels. Even with a torch like this, you can see the big jump from turbo to high. You've also got a higher low mode. The XT11 GT is one of the most popular torches that I looked at, certainly in terms of views, so they do seem to be sort of stuck in a rut on 4 power levels, and I think that could come back to cause them some problems later on, particularly with a torch like this. It's not a huge problem with this torch, but you do get more even spread with the power levels with the 5 instead of the 4, so I would have liked that as well. So a bit of a mixed bag on this one, possibly worth a look at the right price. Thanks for watching. I will catch up with you soon in my next video, and take care.